elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we are gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Good morning, folks. Hope you're doing well on this beautiful, amazing Tuesday morning, March 10th, 2026. Babies. Apparently, war is over. War is almost complete at this point in time, judging by the words of the President of the United States in Iran. This is awesome. This is good news. Oil prices all of a sudden are starting to come back down again. Yes, it was crazy. It went up, it came down, it went up again, up and around, turn around, fugazi, fairy dust. That's how it all felt yesterday, didn't it? A lot of craziness. We'll be discussing the fact that Donald Trump's statement on that yesterday. Prices of oil, we'll be talking about that. Mark Carney, jet flying again over to Norway for UN exercises, they say. Turns out more so that he's kind of just ignoring the press, ignoring Parliament, doesn't want to be held accountable for really anything he has to say. Even his caucus is like, what are we talking about here? No, come back. Come talk to caucus. We want to hear from your very words in your mouth of where we actually stand on this issue with Iran. Please let us know. So not only is Parliament saying, hey, we're having a debate tonight, we need to talk about this. No. Even his own caucus is saying, no. Come talk to us first before you go to Parliament. And Mark Carney said, deuces, I'm going to Oslo. So we'll be discussing that. And the fact that we're going to be also talking about, I've been seeing this trending across social media, as well as other parts of news, is the fact that these numbers, these polling numbers are just out of control, crazy right now. And it's gotten to the point where the latest poll had even me open my eyes being like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't agree with any of this at this point. This is insane. This is purely narrative driven at this point. And we'll be talking about this and so much more. Welcome to the Elevate Report. I'm your host, Josh. If you're getting value from today's episode, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to grow. It helps us to get to new audiences. It helps people see there's something different than what the mainstream media has to offer. And the chat is popping off right now. I saw someone coming in reporting in from the North Shore of the Bay of Fundy. Gee, that's awesome. That is so cool. Of course, we have the regular suspects tuning in from Alberta, BC, Toronto, various parts of Timmins. I saw Timmins, Ontario in the chat. Awesome to see all of you here. I even saw, I think it was JJ View says, this song sucks. And to that I say, get used to it. Put it on mute until you see my face. Because that's what you're getting, sucker. So today we're going to be talking about the fact that Donald Trump's statement from last night saying this war is virtually over. It's about 2 minutes from an answer he gave to a reporter on this situation that's taking place in Iran.
Complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared?
Well, I think you could say it
both.
It's the beginning. It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar, they have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days. When you think about it, it's incredible. We wiped out a big Navy, very powerful Navy. These were ships. These were serious ships. These were ships that you buy when you want to win battles. They're all on the bottom floor. The sailors are all running off their ships. They refuse to get on the ships. The Air Force is gone. Everything's gone. The missiles are down to a trickle. The drones are down to probably 25%. and they'll soon be down to nothing. We'll have where they manufacture the drones are under fire as we speak. They're being hit. So the rest is going to be determination as to my attitude, along with the people in the Trump administration, what we want to do.
So you heard it right there. We've hit everything we need to hit. It's done. We want to get out. It's over. He wanted to make it a very quick excursion, that he also said as well. And to those people like me who are not very fond of regime change wars, it's nice to hear that, okay, if you are going to do it, get in, get out. Let's move on. And we go from there. And that's, how I'm feeling in general with this is I've said on the show plenty of times where I definitely was watching this I always hold my breath on this one. I'm like, okay, what's actually going to happen? Yes, I'm definitely on board with seeing what Iran has done to their people. 40,000 protesters just slaughtered like that. Something needs to be done about that, 100%. But as soon as I hear the war hawks behind Donald Trump saying, yeah, regime change, I was like, how much say do they really have on this? I'm concerned, right? First and foremost. And to see Donald Trump saying, yeah, we're getting out. There's two things here. Obviously, this is him promoting a win. And I know right now I'm about to say some things that's going to upset some folks, but this is just my take on this. So this is just me talking. This is not me talking on facts. This is just me talking personally from what I'm seeing. Is what I saw from Donald Trump yesterday was this is him getting a win. And he wanted to get in and he wanted to get out. From my perspective, this seemed like a situation where it was going to be kind of like Venezuela. Get in, get out. We do what we need. Minimal damage to us. We move out. We move on. Then when they attacked Iran, and then Iran just kind of roped everybody into it, started hitting bases in the region of U.S. bases in other countries, and just dragging everybody into it, launching missiles at Turkey and Saudi Arabia, you name it, Bahrain, all these places, just try to knock out their different infrastructure. I get the feeling that Trump didn't realize how messy this was going to get, and it got messy very quickly. And this is him saying, all right, we got to win. Now it's time to stay. We need to get out. If we stay in, it's only going to get worse, and the U.S. wants to avoid putting troops on the ground at all costs. At all costs. We've heard this terminology from Pete Hegseth, is burden sharing. The U.S. wants to have more burden sharing with their allies, meaning the U.S.'s stance on their new foreign policy when they do engage in conflict, they don't want it to all be them. They want to share the burden amongst all of their allies. So in this case, we have Israel launched the first strike, U.S. helped out, Saudi Arabia is helping out, so on and so forth. That's more so what we're seeing is the U.S. provided airstrikes, and if they want to go boots on the ground, well, Israel's going to have to be the ones who provide the boots on the ground. And this is kind of what I'm seeing is the U.S. is now pulling out because they don't want to have any on the ground troops, because that would get really ugly very quickly, because we do not know what could be awaiting them. We don't know what dirty bombs are on the ground. We don't know what mines are on there. We don't know what is going on there. And it's probably the best that they don't do it, because they would get ugly very, very quickly. So I see this as Donald Trump taking a win where he can and trying to get out of the mess that this could get really, really bad very quickly. And that's kind of what we are now seeing. And so I want to play this because I talked about this as a tweet yesterday. I'm going to discuss this I'm going to probably play about 3 minutes worth of tape here, where this is Charlie Kirk on his show this time last year. Actually, this would have been June this past year, talking about the Lindsey Grahams of the world pressuring Donald Trump to do a regime change in Iran. And this was a fascinating take because Charlie Kirk hits two extremes. He talks about two extreme groups. You have the isolationists, and then you have the war hawks, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, who just want regime change all the time. And he talks about the tension that these two groups have. So I want to play just the first minute and a half and then the last minute and a half and let you know, just kind of curious to your perspective and what is said here.
and start a new chapter in the Middle East. And that sounds good, doesn't it? But what have we learned when it comes to wars, and especially wars in the Middle East? What you draw up on a whiteboard rarely happens. What you think theoretically is going to occur, there might be unintended and unforeseen consequences, especially when you're talking about a country 2.5 times the size of Texas. It has 90 million people and was an ancient and great power with well over a dozen ethnic groups. You have underground Christians. You don't really have many Jews left in Persia. But also you have secular younger Persians. Who's going to run the country exactly, Lindsey Graham? This sounds like Hillary Rodham Clinton in Libya. So I'm pointing to the first extreme right now, the neoconservative extreme. The we must go take off the head of the snake right now.
So that's him talking about the first extreme. Then he goes into the second extreme here, the last half of this clip here. And again, so curious to see the chat pop off about this and your perspectives on what's being said here.
Oh, that is wrong. So that is one extreme. The other extreme is one that I have deep respect and reverence for, because I actually think if we had that other extreme, we would not have invaded Iraq. This other extreme is philosophically important. It's important to consider, and that's the Ron Paul extreme. And I love Ron Paul. Ron Paul is awesome. I would have Ron Paul on the show regularly. He is a hero because Ron Paul had the courage to challenge old sacred cows of the Republican Party. He made people defend the indefensible. But the Ron Paul perspective is strictly isolationist. I actually agree with a lot of this other extreme. A lot. I think it's healthy to have this other extreme more than the neoconservative extreme, because this extreme has been underrepresented in the public dialogue and discourse the last 20 years. So you have these two extremes.
So there you go. That's quick and that's dirty, but that's essentially what he's getting at. There's these two extremes that are always at odds and at tension when it comes to American foreign policy. It likes the Ron Pauls of the world, and this is increasingly so, especially on the right-hand side of the aisle. And of course, the left wing is just, they don't have any principle, so they'll always cite clips like Charlie Kirk to try and dunk on Donald Trump. This is your boy. This is what he's saying. Ignore them. They have no principle. They don't talk. They don't argue in good faith. So we're going to ignore all that. Let's look at the right hand side of the aisle here. There's the divide right now between the isolationists, those who's like, hey, let's put America first. Let's not get involved in foreign wars. And then you have those who want to get involved in foreign wars, and we got to change and go after, and defend our interests abroad to fight against the likes of China and geopolitically all of this. And I think that's kind of what we saw in this situation is they got in, wanted to get in and get out. That's the Don Rowe doctrine I'm starting to learn more and more, is they don't want to get involved in forever wars. They want to go out, take care of business, and come back home. And that's what we are now witnessing in the debate that continues to happen. It is funny for me when I say the left will always, why are we, agreeing to this? Mark Carney, why'd you support Donald Trump in this? Blah, 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 blah. We expect that from the conservatives, but Mark Carney, we thought you were different. But we all know, dang, that when Obama was starting wars, silence. Joe Biden getting involved in silence. We're okay with that. But hey, because Donald Trump's doing it, again, that's what I'm saying. These people have no principle. So I want to just kind of put that out there because I think it's a good thing to hear Donald Trump allude to the fact that, yeah, we got to get out. And again, it comes back to that whole 14-day cap that we were talking about yesterday, that we're getting close to that 14 days and Donald Trump knows his time. And he's like, yeah, all right, we don't get out by the 14-day mark, things are going to get very, very ugly in terms of the global markets. So let's pull out. So, and that's what we saw yesterday. Opening yesterday, oil spikes to 120, comes back down to 95, went down to as low as 83. It was just insane. It was all over the place. Now we're starting to see the price of a barrel of oil starting to somewhat stabilize, but still between that $90 to $100 per barrel. And we'll see where all this goes. But man, it was getting very, very ugly. And before we move on to the next topic, which is, of course, what's going on with these wild polling here in Canada with Mark Carney, we'll hit the super chats here, folks. All right, we have Hazen Wilbers joined as a new member. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you, sir. Jessica says, if these polls were real, no conservative would be able to win. From what I've learned, Jessica, that we are actually about to witness the full takeover of the full country. We're going to watch liberals win in every ride, including Alberta. That's what I'm being told. Oh my goodness, craziness. Jessica also follows that up with, did you see another CBC ex-employee has come out? Yes, I did see that. And also, I guess as a reminder right now, at about noon Atlantic time, 11 p.m. Eastern, or 11 a.m. Eastern, I should say, we have the likes of Travis Dunrod, who will be going to committee, which will be streaming live right here, which will be on our channel. You can follow that up afterwards, but that's happening. Yes, I did see that. The Fog Hail says, I would strongly urge you to speak with a fellow Canadian history legends, as he would course correct your understanding before you head down the CBC CTV path on this issue. I have no idea what in God's green earth you're even talking about. So we'll leave it there. We move forward. And on this issue of polling, here we go. And I also saw in the general chat, people are realizing they had to search the show. They are not getting notifications anymore of the show's live streams. That's why, it's partially why we're seeing lower numbers than usual when we first started out. It's partially because YouTube rejigged their whole algorithm, so they pick and choose when you see notifications, I think is one thing. But the number two, they've also redesigned their whole homepage. If you've noticed before, you would get, I think, 9 up to 12 slots on the homepage of things you could watch and see. Now it's down to 6. So now it's become even more competitive to be able to get to your homepage. So naturally, shows like ours, YouTube will pick and choose when I show up on your homepage and when I don't. And that's why you're seeing such a limited amount of notifications, or knowing that we're here. And the fact that we're not even popping up in your notifications is also concerning. But that's kind of where the game of YouTube is playing right now. And so I'd even just try your best, go down, hit that notification bell, make sure you hit all notifications, not just some of them, so that they can't pick and choose which ones they want to send you. And hopefully that will fix a lot of this. But that's kind of what we're seeing right now. But this was popping up yesterday. Latest liaison strategies poll modeled out. All right. So this is the latest polling that's been coming out, man. And I read this. I was like, okay. Okay. Apparently liberals are at 237 seats. Brings the Conservatives down to 69 seats, the Bloc at 25, NDP at 9, and the Green at 2. Wow, they gained 1. Look at them go. And then an independent seat at 1. Liberal majority government, 237 seats. To give you an idea, the largest win, I think, came with Brian Mulroney at 211 seats. Like ever, general elections, ever. The largest seat total was around 211. I could be wrong, but it's around that neighborhood. They had Pierre Poilievre polling at the highest at 220. So you're telling me Mark Carney is polling at 237 seats, the highest of all time. All time. This is why I keep equating Mark Carney's time in office to very similar to what we saw with Joe Biden. They're different, but they're similar. Joe Biden, they wanted us to let us know that he was the most popular president of all time based on his vote totals. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. Now we got this polling coming out telling me at 237 seats the Liberals are going to take, showing that Mark Carney is the most popular prime minister of all time. All time. Don't get me wrong, I'll take my partisan hat off for 2 seconds. Let's just look at it. Based on what's reported and what we see, I can see why people are attracted to Mark Carney, because they are so scared of the chaos that's happening with Donald Trump. They see Mark Carney as a stable choice. Whether you agree with it or not, that's how people view it. That's how it's been pitched to them. That's how they're taking the information in. So if that's my worldview and how I understand things, I only take things at the surface level, of course, I can understand to some degree this makes sense. But to the tune of 237 seats is insane. This is it's gotten to the point, when I read this yesterday, I pulled this up and I looked at it and I said, this is just unreasonable at this point. Like, how do you expect anyone to take you seriously as a polling firm when this is the type of polling you're putting out? How? And we know that all the polling firms are taking money from the Liberal government in some shape or form. All of them do. So there's obviously questions that need to be taken about that. But this only shows that this is purely narrative driven at this point. They want to plug home and just drive home a specific narrative to put Poilievre in the dirt, bury him, and completely and utterly just take the air out of the sails of the Conservative Party in any way they can. That's what this is happening right now. And this is happening across all polling right now. It is 100% narrative driven. I would say, I shouldn't say 100%. A lot of it is narrative driven to put Poilievre out. And it's to just completely demoralize the Conservative base. And guess what? In some cases, it's working. I've had anecdotal conversations with friends who are saying, what's the point? We live in a country who's just completely brainwashed. We're never going to win another election. I've seen people in the live chat here saying, I'm kind of giving up. I'm tapping out. Which is showing me, and all these conversations happened surrounding when a lot of this polling was coming out. And that is exactly the reaction that they want you to have. They want you to be demoralized. They don't want you to fight. They want you to give up and have no hope and disengage from the political process so that they can win their majority. That's what we're witnessing. You can't let them do it. Do not let them do it. This is all a ruse to try and get you to disengage and not fight for a better country so that they can more easily take power the way they want to take power. That's what we have. And I actually really appreciate Wyatt Claypool's stance on a lot of this. That's what he was putting out. He says, when the Liberals needed Trudeau to step down, propaganda polls shoot up to plus 25 Conservatives. When they need to generate a narrative that Carney has momentum in the March 2025, the same pollster says plus 17.7 Liberal Party of Canada. Now in March 2026, the propaganda polls are burying Pierre. Just burying him. He follows that up with this. Most pollsters are good or okay. Propaganda polls set narratives. Carney needs to be said to have big momentum so the propaganda polls cannot just give him a solid lead of 5 to 8%. They need to say something like plus 15% so it solidifies the narrative of momentum and demoralizes the Conservative voters. And that's exactly what we are witnessing here. The amount of demoralization I've seen in my general chats, I've seen in super chats, I've had in personal conversations, and seeing across social media, this polling is working. It's getting you to completely tap out so that if an election were to come around, well, you don't even bother because Poilievre's just going to lose, right? Yep. Keep that in mind. That's just how this is all going, folks. Do not be demoralized. And now I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see people in the chat realizing, agreeing. Yes, it's true. It's dang true. We have even Kate Harrison talking about some of the positioning of the Liberal Party. Do not fall, and I'll say this personally to you, do not fall for these polling numbers of complete just proportions of exaggeration. Listen to Kate Harrison talk about here from her perspective. Again, this is her perspective, but listen to her take on what she is seeing from her experience and what could be happening behind closed doors in the Liberal Party of Canada.
Any opposition party is going to point to the cost of living crisis that many Canadians face. by-elections tend to be flashpoints in time, and we've seen surprising results happen. I think back to last year when the Conservatives unexpectedly took the riding of Toronto-St. Paul's from the Liberals, and that was a flashpoint in time, partially driven by Conservative popularity at that moment, but also more immediately the conflict between Israel and Palestine that played a role in that riding in particular in terms of motivating voters. So what will voters be dealing with in 3 weeks' time? I think, we'll see where we are in terms of trade and Trump. It's possible that Quebec voters might say Mark Carney's had, a year to try and land an agreement with President Trump. We may not be further ahead, so I'm going to choose to vote for a candidate that's going to put Quebec interests and Canada's interests more prominently at the fore. I think the Liberals are more worried than they may let on. They have made this a very short by-election, the shortest it could possibly be. And it is also notable that it happens the day after their major convention in Montreal. That means every cabinet minister, volunteer, grassroots organizer from the Liberal Party bench is going to be in the province of Quebec, and you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to be asked to go to Terrebonne.
Listen to that. It's not by accident, folks. It's not. These are the signs of a party that is worried that they're going to gain support. They know Terrebonne's very important, and all eyes will be on Terrebonne, because if they win that riding, they get their majority. So that's first and foremost. But a Liberal Party who actually believes the polling they're seeing wouldn't be doing what they're doing. Setting up a by-election in the shortest time frame possible shows that they are worried. Worried that, things change. Things are happening consistently, and things do change very quickly, especially in this day and age. They're worried that they will lose support if they do have that support, or that people are going to see through the facade that's being posted and has been posted over the past year. Who knows what the voters in Terrebonne are going to say? A year's a crazy time. It'll be almost a year to the day when that by-election takes place. What was it? Election was April 28th last year. And then we're going to have a by-election in Terrebonne, University of Rosedale and Scarborough West, April 13th. Almost to the day, these by-elections taking place. And to do this all the day after your crazy Liberal convention, to make sure everyone is in the area to campaign for you, and they're also pumping insane amounts of money into this to outspend the bloc, which they can. That's what they're going to be doing. That doesn't signal to me a party that's confident. That signals to me a party that is worried. And I actually tend to agree with Kate on this, first and foremost, for sure. We have Rubaduck, who says, I hate that y'all have a Kamala. Gee, fair enough. Proud Graham, he says, I purposely started ignoring polls last year. Trust what you see. And Proud Graham, he has now become a member of the show. Let's go. Yeah, and I tend to be in this boat of, I think polls are good they are good. You have to take them into account to some degree. I do believe Mark Carney is ahead in the polls. I don't think Mark Carney is ahead in the way that they would like us to believe he's ahead. I believe it's getting closer to the margin of error than they would like us to believe. That's what I think is happening, because right now the polling results that are seeing that were coming out are 100% a way to drive a narrative. That's all I'm seeing right now. And I'm starting to see a lot of people don't trust it, and you shouldn't trust it. And we keep moving forward because we have the likes of this stuff happening, where let's work through the last year of this prime minister. He's gotten some MOUs done. He signed some partnerships, strategic partnerships, questionable actors here and there. He's his first and only, his main campaign promise was to get a deal done with the U.S. That's not been done. We are close. Then it blew up. There's questions around why it blew up. He's been doing a lot of traveling, trying to deepen ties. But we're not seeing any result from any of these meetings yet. Even liberal strategists hopping on CBC are even admitting this, that we're not seeing any result from some of these meetings. So obviously you have the more concrete one, where the $2.6 billion uranium deal to India, shout out Camco. And then we just saw canola tariffs come down on our product here, after now sending the CBC to China to do puff pieces for the CCP. I'm sorry that I'm maybe a little... I'm actually at this point, I'm just brainstorming what Mark Carney's done this past year. And there's nothing of serious consequence he's done. He sold us out to China for the sake of canola tariffs. And that's the one thing I found so funny. I see these posts all the time, and here we go, right? People defend the deals or the conversations that have been had with India and China, and saying, well, India and China never weaponized tariffs like the U.S. has, so that's why we trust them more. I'm like, China literally, let's ignore everything else they've done to us, which is insane in and of itself. They literally weaponized tariffs to get us to sell their EVs here. Like, what are we talking about here? That's what China did. They brought us to our knees on the canola tariffs so that we would sell their stupid EVs here. And we did. We coalesced. So you tell me what Mark Carney has accomplished. Because what I've seen is Mark Carney bend the knee a lot. I haven't seen Mark Carney fighting. I've seen Mark Carney giving. That's what I'm seeing from a lot of these deals and these conversations that are being had. And any of the deals that are being had or that have been signed, of course, are deals that are in either directly or indirectly benefiting him monetarily. But we want to ignore that. So you tell me what has been accomplished this year. If we just laid out what Mark Carney has accomplished, I just don't get why you could vote for this. Why have more of the same? Status quo. Sounds good to me. It doesn't make sense. It simply doesn't make sense. So, as Mark Carney has continued to travel and continue to do deals and have more conversations, well, Parliament has been really frustrated. Like, so the NDP has come out, Don Davies, saying, hey, we want you in Parliament to defend and debate your stance on Iran. We want to have that debate tonight. And Mark Carney said, no, I'm going to Norway to watch UN exercises. Anyways, here's Don Davies.
We just heard from the Prime Minister's office that at least at this point, he does not intend to participate in the debate tonight. That is unacceptable. After changing positions by our count 4 times, Canadians deserve to have a clear statement from the Prime Minister in this House to be accountable not only to parliamentarians, but to the Canadian public, and to clarify what the position of Canada and his Liberal government really is. We just heard from the Prime Minister.
So here he goes, running. And the NDP's calling him out, saying, hey, we want to talk about this. What is actually your stance? Your stance has changed, by our count, 4 times. What is your take on this? And even so, his own caucus, which we'll get to here shortly, was asking the same thing, because no one's unified on the messaging out of this party right now. They're all really confused on what is currently transpiring and what they want to see happen. I see a couple messages pop up in the chat here saying there were shots fired at the Toronto consulate. All right. This was just published 2 hours ago. Let's pull up this one here. Shout out the chat for always keeping an eye on the news. Shots fired at U.S. consulate in Canada as police investigate incident. Police in Canada are investigating after shots were fired at the U.S. consulate in Toronto. Officers said evidence was found of a discharged firearm and that no injuries were reported. Toronto police said in a social media post they had responded to the reported shots at 5:29 a.m. on Tuesday. Representatives for the U.S. Embassy in Toronto and the Department of State did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The incident follows the explosion of an improvised device at the U.S. Embassy in Oslo on Sunday. The Norwegian police were still searching for a suspect with a possible link to the Iran war among the lines of inquiry. Norwegian police on Monday published 2 photographs of the suspect they believe to be behind the weekend blast that caused no injuries and minor damage. This is a good call out that this is now transpired here at the U.S. consulate in Toronto and shots being fired. Luckily, there's no injuries. However, this is the type of stuff, man, that you have to keep an eye out for. We know it. We know that Iran, the IRGC, have sleeper cells throughout the world, mainly in the West, that they want to activate and can activate. And there was even news yesterday that broke that there was messages that were intercepted suggesting that sleeper cells were now being activated. So you have to keep a close eye of what potentially could be happening here. But good call it on the chat to bring this up while we continue to go through here. I'm glad that everyone's safe, but we have to keep an eye on this stuff, man. It's getting crazy out there. So as I get back to Mark Carney and then what's happening. So he's been dodging questions, dodging accountability. Parliamentarians are getting frustrated. They're getting annoyed. And they don't know what they're frustrated. They don't know what to say with it. They're stunned because their prime minister is never in the country. And the other likes the CBC, who's defending this case, defending that, because of what's happening in the world, we have a prime minister who needs to be a bit more internationally focused. People still can't afford their groceries. They are struggling to afford their power. Okay. Struggling to afford their housing. The 3 pillars that Mark Carney himself said he will be judged on with the results of those things. We're a year into this. Those things haven't gotten better. They've gotten worse. So yes, let's judge him on that. Those are the 3 pillars in Canadian society he said he needed to be judged on. And none of those things have improved. Yet he keeps going on international trips, which we knew this was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen when Mark Carney got him because Mr. Three passports over here, Mr. hasn't been in the country 15 years over here, Mr. Jet Flyer. Where are you going to be? Not in Canada, not answering questions, not being held accountable. Yet these pollsters want me to believe that they're going to get 237 seats in a general election if it was held today. Yeah. Give me a break. So now we have the likes of his Minister of Defense, Minister of Safety, I should say, Gary Onisangri, having to defend Carney's record in committee against a very, very motivated Aaron Gunn. Watch the first 2 minutes of this.
Minister, first question to you. Do you believe China's communist regime poses a security threat to Canada?
What I would say, Mr. Gunn, is that Canada is in a moment where we are expanding trade. We are, as I said earlier, as the Prime Minister has said, we will meet the countries where they're at, not where we want them to be. With respect to China,
are they a security threat or no?
With respect to China, we do have an MOU that speaks to to address the issues around safety and security in both countries.
Thank you, Minister. I'll be a bit more direct. Do you have evidence that the communist regime in Beijing Beijing has previously targeted Canadian institutions or strategic assets with cyber attacks and other forms of espionage?
Yes, there have been reports of that in the past. Some of them have been documented.
I mean, you're the Minister of Public Safety. Do you have evidence?
There's definitely documented evidence of that, yes.
Do you have evidence that the communist regime in Beijing has targeted the House of Commons and the private information of parliamentarians?
What I will say is that for the purpose of this particular transaction, this was a procurement that was undertaken by the province of British Columbia.
So you don't deny that then?
Well, look, there's been a number of incidents. I'm not sure we're here to litigate every one of those. What I would say is that there is a need right now for Canada to ensure that we are able to go clear-eyed and ensure that we have a track that deals with safety and security. Then that is something that we're doing.
Minister, I appreciate your openness and honesty. I just want to make sure we're on the record that, because I think it's a position that you can hold, that you think it's reasonable to use taxpayer money to help subsidize the procurement of critically important transportation infrastructure from a regime currently engaged in espionage and other cyber crimes against Canada. You think that is reasonable? So that's what's happening.
So what I would say is that, as I said a number of times, the procurement was undertaken by the government of British Columbia, and this is
right. But it was taxpayer money. It was federal taxpayer.
This is within their purview. This is.
Oh, Gary, I think it's time for the Liberal Party to spend more money on that those committee response hearing coaching that you guys are paying so much money, taxpayer money on. Maybe spend more of that. This is rough. But Aaron Gunn hitting all the right points and hitting all the right pressure points on top of that. Hey, let's talk about this here. The province of British Columbia was taking on a contract, accepted a contract from a company based out of China to build your ferries. Instead of building that here in Canada, you had them built in China. And the CFIB, which is a federal loan program, they allowed that to just kind of, the federal government signed off on this. And yeah, that's great. After everything they had campaigned on prior, saying, no, we got to do everything in Canada, Canadian. Chrystia Freeland quietly signed that off. And now what happens? Well, Aaron Gunn properly framed the issue. What has China been doing to us? How have they been hostile in our nation? Have they been engaged in espionage? Have they not been spying on parliamentarians and their communications? Haven't they been doing all of this? Well, yes. Then why did we accept this? Gave this contract to a Chinese company overseen by the CCP. Why? Why did we do that? Well, it was the province of British Columbia. Shut up. I know you're trying to deflect. That's what you guys do best. No. You guys signed off on the check, CFIB, to give that money to the province of British Columbia, who then you saw was doing this and you allowed it to happen. So yes, this one's still on you. Do not try to scapegoat and blame David Eby. There's plenty of other things to blame him for. But this, we need clarity on. And it's crazy that we're still over a year since all this took place and we're still talking, still having to make these guys answer for it. It's bonkers at this present time. And this is kind of where we hold ourselves at this present time. I'm going to pull this up just for kicks and giggles, because since we're talking about crazy polling, let's talk about some crazy polling happening in BC, folks. A new BC Innovative Research poll says the Conservatives had a 47% to NDP's 39%. Took place between February 6th and March 3rd. I believe these, actually, I think that's about around time. I'm trying to remember. Chat, clarify when, let me know when the news came out about the question around land titles in Vancouver came out. I can't remember what time that was. Chat, clarify on that one. But February 6th to March 3rd, even before all that came out, there's still these questions the NDP are not dealing with. They're not dealing with what the questions that are hovering around about land ownership in BC right now. None of that's taking place. No. So, of course, Conservatives, that came out February 20th. Okay, so this impacts this polling. So if that impacts this polling, which it definitely was, it's amazing when people don't know if they own their land anymore. Well, that's going to impact polling, isn't it? NDP is falling like a rock right now. Conservatives are surging. And again, it's one poll. And as I said earlier in the show, polling is polling. You have to take snapshots. This seems like a fairly reasonable poll. It's not telling me Conservatives are going to win by 60, take 60% of the vote, as federal polls are saying right now for the Liberals. But this adds up. This makes sense. And the one thing that is the most eye-opening about this is the Conservatives don't have a leader. Like, they don't have a leader on this. So where does that polling change? Does it change for the negative? Does it change for the positive? Typically, when you now are able to put a face to a party and they pick a leader that the audience can at least get to know a little bit and they're okay with, you'll see an increase in this polling. So with whatever the NDP and with the help of the Liberal Party they've been doing in BC, well, it's clearly not working out provincially for the NDP. I'll pop over to the Super Chats here. I'll see a lot of them popping off here. Holy smokes, I missed a few here. I missed a few. All right, Bandit249 Saw has become a member. Let's go. Bandit249 says, I can super chat now. Had to buy membership just to give you a super chat money, Josh. You win. What? That can't be right. That literally can't be right. Well, I will give you your money back. That shouldn't be how that operates. I need to check that out. That's wrong. That's not me. That's the YouTube glitch or something. I never set that up. That's psychotic. I'll give you your money back. Rubaduck says, Carney kneels so much he forgot how to use Hillsbow. All right. Okay. Kimmer4761 says, Carney and the Liberal Party have created the biggest heist of Canadian wealth in this country has ever witnessed. Yes, that the concentration of wealth, the concentration of power is definitely, it's been one of the largest for sure. I would say it's up there. Definitely the largest concentration of wealth and power that we've seen. Boy180 says, a little late to the party, but the polling you showed reflects the same thing that happened with Pierre. Major response bias going on. I agree. There's all of that going on at this present time. Bueno Kitty says the amount of effort taken to deride Pierre versus scrutinizing Mark's accomplishments or lack thereof is distraction to feel a certain way versus to see the truth. I agree. It goes back to the conversation. This debate happens on the right a lot. Is Pierre is establishment. He doesn't want real change. He doesn't want anything. And I understand the argument. However, if that were true, I just don't think, the amount of effort they've gone into trying to discredit Pierre and the levels that they've tried to go and discredit Pierre and try to get him ousted is been just very eye-opening for me to watch and witness. Showing to me that they see him as a very serious threat to them, obviously, but also a threat to their power structure. If this was full uniparty, they would fight back, but they wouldn't be going to the levels that they're going to right now. And I think that's something to take into account. Darkman042 says, Pierre has already responded on LinkedIn. Responded to what? The shooting? Did he respond to the shooting? Now let's pull up Pierre's account here. Yes, he did. Here we go. Good job, chat. Good tracking. Conservatives condemn the criminal who fired shots at the U.S. consulate. Political violence is unacceptable and wrong. I hope the perpetrator is arrested, convicted, and jailed for a long time. At least we have a leader in this country that is speaking out about the issues that Canadians are concerned about, like, our public safety, instead of trying to gaslight their way through everything. Awesome to see it. Bandit249 Saw says, Trump is using the military the way it should have always been used. Get in and get out. The elites and warhawks dislike him for that. They can't make money. That is another argument that people have. And this is actually me and a debate. I think me and Reg will have this debate this Friday. It'll be fun. Me and Reg have been going back and forth on this quite a bit. I quite frankly do, as someone who's always on edge about regime change, I definitely appreciate the foreign policy that the Trump administration has taken, where it is a get in and get out. You can have the debates about the international law. We can have those debates. Those are more of a long form debate that can and should be had in terms of the way they've been activating and going about their operations. It's just different than anyone's ever seen. That's why there's so much debate around it. But I am a huge fan of okay, if you're going to do this, yes, get in, get out. We'll see what the repercussions are. We'll see what happens with Iran in the coming years. However, it is nice to see all right, let's not get too involved in this and let's get out and keep, try to minimize damage to us as little as possible. JP Alberta First says the message from the CPC shouldn't be how bad the three metrics are, but rather that not only did Carney not fix the problems, but he has made them worse. Small difference, but simpler than statistics. I agree with that. I think the one thing the Conservatives have to be really cautious with, and in terms of messaging as well, is not just going to attack mode and being like, look how bad it's become, because they've done that with Trudeau, and that was very effective with Trudeau. With Carney, because he operates in the gray so much, the point and look what he's doing is not working with the population as well as it worked with Trudeau. And so there has to be a little bit more nuance in how you approach to highlighting his issues. And one of the strategies that they have is actually the way they've highlighted it is, hey, this is something we could be doing, like what Poilievre did going over to Europe. Hey, we could be having these deals with Europe. We could have a pipeline to the East Coast here in Canada. We could have another pipeline to the West Coast. Look at all the people that we could be serving right now, and yet we're just not getting that from Mark Carney. And so I think you have to take a bit more of a deliberate approach, because people are very tired of the anger and they want hope. And so I think if Poilievre and the Conservatives can really continue hitting on that hope and showing hope while still showing how Mark Carney's not delivering that hope, I think is a better way to go about than just pointing at all the things he's doing wrong. Lazarus 8447 says, comes to the polls, I find myself agreeing with Wyatt Claypool on it. Libs ahead right now, sure, but they're not 15 points ahead. They're at most 7 points ahead, but cons are slowly chipping away on it. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's far more close than they want to say it is. And again, it's clear narrative. It's clear that they're just trying to drive a narrative. Kennedy Ken says, member this. All right. Nate Dogg, just dropping $1 on the show. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, big man. Bandit249 says, no, Josh, keep it. Most likely an issue on my end. Anyways, been watching you for about 6+ months. I'm glad to be a member, bro. Much love from Michigan. Let's go. Our friends from across the border. We love you guys. You guys are awesome. Connie Buffone has become also a member. Let's go. Boom. And Lincoln Talent says, this thought came to my mind yesterday. It feels to me that liberals are terrified a civil war might break out, trying to push the gun buyback program before trying to push bills that only benefit them. That's something we can explore. We can explore that. I don't know. I don't think we're so much on the precipice of a civil war in Canada. I do think there's definitely concern around civil strife and more protests erupting, but the appetite in Canada for such actions just doesn't exist on either side of the aisle. The left just wants to just cheerleading Mark Carney in all ways they can, and then he's also losing the fringe left that the people's votes he borrowed the last election. He's losing them to the NDP. But then you have the Conservatives who are struggling so much that they are getting demoralized, and a lot of the Conservatives are just kind of throwing their hands up in the air. So even to get to the point of that level of anger, I just don't see it happening. I see a level of anger of wanting to see change and getting out in the streets and protesting, but to see actual civil combat, I find one's I just don't see happening in Canada. I just don't see it happening at this present time. Could it get there? Maybe. But we just don't have the appetite for it here. I just don't see it happening. I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. Share 1965 says, I don't agree with the poll from BC. The BC Conservatives are not that popular. The one BC party is polling around 7%. Yeah, I think it's more, we'll see as more polls come out. What I see from that polling is more so the shock and freaking out of what's going on with the Vancouver situation. That is a lot of questions coming out about the land rights, who owns it, who doesn't, who am I paying property taxes to, how's that all going to work? Do I even own my land? What's going on with property rights? There's so many questions that the NDP and David Eby have not been providing answers on. And I don't think that polling has much to do with what the Conservatives are doing. It has more to do with the NDP just ignoring a very large elephant in the room, and people are looking for someone to do something about it. That's kind of what I saw from that polling. So, alas, we will finish off with this as we get close to the end of our hour of power, babies. Carney should have consulted Grit Caucus before supporting U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, say some Liberal MPs. What the hell? Oi. Some Liberal MPs told the Hill Times that Prime Minister Mark Carney should have consulted the caucus before declaring Canada's support for the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran, but BC Liberal MP Parm Bains, of course, there's history with Parm Bains, says he's received positive feedback from Iranian Canadians in his riding. Yeah, I'm sure they have. Parm Bains has also done a lot of bidding for CCP media as well. Don't really care much what he has to say. But a lot of his own caucus saying, why haven't you even been talking to us about these issues? Like, because this puts a lot of pressure on his caucus. Because not only does he come out and say, well, this is where we're standing on it, and then change. Not only does that put pressure on Mark Carney and the people around him. Well, when you have to go back to your riding every once in a while, and a lot of these MPs are going back once a week, you go back to your riding and you're doing events, people are asking questions. What is our stance on this? What is Canada's stance on this? And you can't give an answer. It makes you look really bad when you go back to your ridings. And so even these lower level MPs, I imagine the ones who are talking right now, well, you don't get as much of a say. So you have to echo whatever the Prime Minister says. And when the Prime Minister is not talking to you about what his response is going to be and not relaying it to you, not communicating what the response is, why the response is the way it is, how you can respond to questions that are coming in, because that's what happens in these caucus meetings, you have no direction of what you need to do. So when questions are coming to you from emails, people showing up at your office, you're going to events, and you don't have something to say, it starts freaking you out. And you have no leadership from the Prime Minister and leader of your party. That's the frustration that's being communicated here. And imagine being in that situation. There's nothing worse. And I'm sure we've all been through it. If you've been through school or have done public presentations, when someone asks you a question that outright stumps you, it's tough. It's one thing for it to happen during a class presentation. Now imagine one of the largest conflicts that have happened in our lifetime, and you don't have an answer for it. And it's real world consequences. And you don't have an answer for it. You look like an idiot. You look like a moron. And people don't like looking like morons, especially trying to answer for comments that weren't made by them, but they have to answer for them. That's the tension that's happening here. So we'll see how that all goes. And we have the likes of the new PBO has been announced, who's got let's just hear this out.
I have the honor to table in both official languages the certificate of nomination with biographical notes for the proposed appointment of Annette Ryan as Parliamentary Budget Officer for a term of 7 years.
Wow. 7 years. That's a contract. That is a contract, isn't it? Jeremy Patzer, just now, the Liberals have tabled the nomination papers for the new PBO. Annette Ryan, she was at Oxford with Carney and Chrystia Freeland, but surely that's just a coincidence, isn't it? Here's the thing. For this announcement to come on the heels of this CBC article from March 2nd, about a week ago, after a bumpy ride, federal budget watchdog steps down with some praise. OECD ranks Canada's Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer as the best in the world. When it comes on the heels of an article like this, and we'll even read the first couple paragraphs, I'm pretty sure he's seen as like one of the best in the world, not the best in the world. It says, on his first day, he asked the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, to undertake its very first review of Canada's Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer to see how it measures up to similar institutions in other countries. The review looked at the office itself, which provides independent financial analysis to Parliament rather than individual officers. After almost 20 years, I thought an external evaluation of the office was long overdue, he told the Parliamentary Committee last week. I specifically requested that they provide a roadmap to sustain our institution as one of the best among OECD countries. That review delivered last week ranked the PBO first out of the 35 countries of the OECD evaluated. Second on the list is the U.S. Congressional Budget Office. Third is the Bureau of Economic Analysis in the Netherlands. So I stand corrected. He was the best in the world. That verdict did not go unnoticed during Jake's 24th and final appearance as interim PBO before a parliamentary committee. Before we start, I want to congratulate you and your predecessor, Mr. Giroux, and the rest of your team for being identified by the OECD as the top in class for the entire OECD, Conservative MP and Committee Chair Kelly McCauley said. So, as I said, this dropped a week ago. And for coming to the CBC of all places was shocking. There is something we are actually really good in. I read this article. I was proud of something we did for the first time in a long time. We're the best at something. And it's something that actually matters. We have someone who is really good at keeping a government accountable with their spending. And the response is let his contract expire and appoint someone who's friends with Carney and went to school with Carney and Freeland. I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of transparency with this new PBO, aren't we? Yeah. Leave it to Canada, baby. Leave it to Canada. We do something really good, remove them. Someone's the best at what they do, remove them. Take them out. That's wild. That is wild. We'll finish off some last minute super chats, and then I got to get myself ready because we are going live again in a little less than an hour with Travis Dunrod's comments on the CBC. JP Alberta's first says, suck it up, Lib MPs. You had a chance to put the confidence voting clause back into Liberal rules. You choose to keep Trudeau dictatorship model. Yes, that's true. It is wild that they decided not to exercise that act so that they could have a choice to vote out a leader. But hey, alas, here we are. I love that Reg is mixing it up in the chat. People are responding to him. It's awesome. Bueno Kitty says, to me, Jason Jakes was goated when he said the word unsustainable. That is our country's direction in a nutshell. He sounded the alarm. Mark tossed it out the window. Yes. And I want to make this very clear. I don't like Jason Jakes because he said some things I like. I like him because he's a concrete thinker. He's very thorough in his explanations, straightforward, and just tries to tell us what he's seeing based on the analysis and data he's looking at. That's all we ask for. It's not a confirmation bias. Because when you're looking at the same data and wondering what's going on, and you have the Liberal government turning around saying, "Oh, everything's great, everything's awesome, it's the best it's ever been," you're just like, but by every metric, we're falling and getting worse. We just experienced our 32nd month in a row of recession in the manufacturing industry. What do you mean things are going well? And then Jason Jace comes out, who's the PBO, who's supposed to be reviewing all this financial issues. And he's like, "No, you're not crazy. I'm seeing the same things and we need to change." Take him out. Okay. Got it. Understood. John Gotti says, "I still can't believe the polls recently. I hope Avi can realign the electorate by taking some of Carney's left flank." You're talking about Avi Lewis, I believe. Yeah, I don't even know. I actually kind of hope there's actually a third. There's Heather McPherson, Avi Lewis, and there's a third gentleman, larger gentleman, glasses. He has a more standard NDP approach. He's a guy I actually hope wins, because he would actually, if he could win and if he could learn how to unify a party, he would do a lot more damage to the coalition Carney's created on the left than Avi Lewis or Heather McPherson. I'll say that much. But alas, I'll leave it there, folks. I gotta get myself geared up for the next live stream that will be still on this channel. I'll throw the link here, actually, just for kicks and giggles. Boom, 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 boom. All right. All right, here's the link here. I'm posting in the chat. I will pin it. Go over there. Set your reminders, and I'll see y'all in about 40 minutes. Or sorry, 50 minutes. So whatever it is you're doing, whether it be at work, eating some food, getting some breakfast, having some coffee, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are. I love you. I'm out. See you in 50 minutes.